When my only son passed away, I never told my daughter-in-law the money wasn't hers. That call came at dawn, shattering my world. She believed she was inheriting millions, a fortune from my boy, her money machine. She didn't know the truth. That money was never his, and that one secret, that one lie of omission, was the only thing that would save me when she came for it all. My name is Evelyn Hart. I am 58 years old and a widow, living a quiet life in the suburbs of Phoenix. The morning my world ended, I was in my kitchen, preparing breakfast, just me and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. The phone rang, splitting the silence. It was Sabrina. Her voice was cold, as sterile as a hospital hallway. Evelyn. Jason passed in his sleep. It wasn't news. It was an announcement, like a meeting had been cancelled or a flight delayed. My son. My only child. I felt the air leave my lungs, my hand gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. I tried to ask how, why, what happened, but the words caught in my throat. It didn't matter. She clicked the line dead before I could speak. I threw clothes into an overnight bag, my hands shaking so violently I could barely zip it. The drive to the luxury villa they shared by the lake was a haze of pavement and blinding Arizona sun. All I could think about were my last few conversations with Jason. He'd sounded so tired, so worn down. He kept mentioning money troubles, talking vaguely about Sabrina's expectations and how he felt trapped. I told him we'd figure it out. I told him to rest. When I arrived, the massive, imposing iron gates were closed. I buzzed, waited, buzzed again, leaning on the button, a frantic energy rising in my chest. Finally, the intercom crackled. "What?" Sabrina's voice snapped. "It's Evelyn. Let me in." There was a buzz, but the gate only opened a few feet, not wide enough for my car. It was deliberate. I had to park on the street and squeeze myself through the gap like a delivery person, like a stranger. She was waiting for me on the sweeping marble steps, looking like she was ready for a magazine cover shoot. Her black dress fit perfectly. Her makeup was immaculate, and on her wrist, she wore a glittering, brand-new luxury watch I'd never seen before. She wasn't crying. As I stumbled up the steps, trembling and winded, I saw the corner of her mouth twitched into a tiny, satisfied smirk. "Where is he?" "What happened?" I whispered, my voice breaking. Sabrina sighed, an impatient sound. "His heart just gave out. The doctors warned him." She turned, her heels clicking loudly on the floor as she walked inside. "I'm already handling the arrangements. The costs are, of course, astronomical. I need to look into the insurance payouts immediately." Insurance. My son wasn't even gone 12 hours, and she was talking about insurance. I walked past her, into the vast living room that looked out over the water. Jason's guitar was on its stand. His favorite books were piled on the coffee table. I reached out to touch a framed photo of him, my fingertips brushing his smile. "At least now that my money machine is dead," Sabrina said from behind me. "I'll actually get my share. You can keep living on your tiny pension." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was a physical blow, sharper than a slap. I said nothing. I couldn't. I just gripped the strap of my handbag, my knuckles white. Inside that bag, beneath my old wallet and keys, was a thick folder of financial documents. The Hart Legacy Trust. Documents Sabrina had never seen, had never even known existed. She was already moving toward the kitchen, where I could see a few of her friends huddled, drinking coffee. She raised her voice, making sure they, and I, could hear her clearly. The lawyer is coming this afternoon to read the will. Finally, everything will be put under my name, as it should be. It hit me then. This wasn't grief. This was a hostile takeover. She was betting everything on Jason's death, on the inheritance she was so sure was hers. I couldn't breathe in that house. I turned and walked back out, squeezing through the gap in the gate. I got into my car, the heat already stifling. I leaned my head against the steering wheel and finally, quietly, began to sob. She thought she had him. She thought she had it all. I looked back at the house, a monument to her greed. I muttered the words to myself, to the empty car. You stupid, stupid girl. There was one thing Jason had never told her. The money she was dreaming of. The millions she was already spending in her head. It was never his to begin with. And if she knew that, if she knew the truth, her entire world would evaporate. The night before they buried my son, I sat alone at my dining room table. The silence in my small house was a living thing, heavy and suffocating. In the circle of light from my small lamp, I spread out the documents from my handbag, the source of my strength, and the root of Sabrina's delusion. There was my late husband, Daniel's will, thick and ironclad, the articles of incorporation for the Hart Legacy Trust, the original sales contract for Daniel's company, dated decades ago. When Daniel died, he left nothing to chance. He had seen the world, and he knew its dangers. His will was precise, all significant assets, the entire foundation of our family's wealth, were placed irrevocably into the Hart Legacy Trust. I, Evelyn Hart, was the sole trustee and primary beneficiary. Jason was named only as a contingent beneficiary, meaning he would inherit only upon my death. Daniel had ensured I would never be at the mercy of anyone. Jason had his father's brilliance. When he sold his medical tech startup to that giant conglomerate, Nova Pulse Dynamics, he didn't just cash out. He knew his wife. He respected his father's structure. He insisted, absolutely insisted, that the majority of his earnings, millions of dollars, be used to reimburse the trust for his education and the seed money I'd given him. It was a legal maneuver, clean and binding. His new wealth flowed directly into the Hart Legacy Trust. Legally, it wasn't his. It was mine. I remembered the fights. One blistering afternoon, I'd arrived at their villa to hear shouting. Sabrina wanted another vacation home, a sprawling beachfront property. Jason refused. "Why not?" she screamed, her voice echoing. "We have the money. Or is your mother still clinging to your accounts? She's an old parasite. Jason, a relic just sucking you dry. A parasite. My own son had defended me, but he never told her the truth. He never told her that I wasn't clinging to his money. He had willingly, legally, given it to me for safekeeping. The last time I saw him alive, we had dinner. The tension between him and Sabrina was a knife's edge. She barely looked at me. As I was leaving, Jason pulled me into a hug that lasted a few seconds too long. "I love you, Mom," he whispered, and with a movement too fast for Sabrina to notice, he slipped a thick envelope into my coat pocket. I opened it in my car. Inside a key to a safe deposit box, a string of numbers for a cryptocurrency wallet, and a single sheet of paper with his familiar, strong handwriting. "Mom, this money is legally yours. All of it. Don't let Sabrina touch it. Ever." So I played the part she assigned me, the quiet, grieving mother living on a meager pension. I let her believe the vast fortune from Novapulse, the stocks, the investments, all belonged to Jason. I let her arrogance build. I let her treat me with that lazy, dismissive contempt. The distance and scorn it created were a wall, and behind it, Jason and I worked. The more she tried to control him, monitoring his calls, demanding access to accounts, the more he quietly transferred. He moved voting rights. He signed over proxy controls. He made me the sole signatory on accounts she didn't even know existed. I had often wondered if I should just tell her, show her the papers, end the charade. But every time I looked at her, saw the cold, calculating greed in her eyes as she appraised a new watch or a new car, I couldn't. The truth, my secret, became my armor. Just before he died, he called me. His voice was a rasp, thin and worn out from the treatments. He was tired. "Mom," he'd said, "I have a new plan, a safe exit plan for the assets. We need to talk. After my last chemo round, we'll meet." We never had that meeting. I looked up from the papers, my eyes landing on the small, framed photo of Jason on my fireplace mantel. His smile, bright and genuine, from a time before her. Sabrina was walking into a funeral believing she was about to become an heiress. She believed she could discard me like trash. I swore to the photograph, to the memory of my son, that if she pushed me, if she dared to attack me to get her hands on what wasn't hers, I would use that secret. I would use the truth of that money to protect myself. And if I had to, I would use it to utterly destroy her. The day of the funeral was a performance, and Sabrina was its star. She arrived in a black dress so tight it looked poured onto her, a veil covering her face until the moment she saw the cameras, when she lifted it to dab at perfectly dry eyes. She was magnificent in her theatrical grief. She networked among the mourners, her voice carrying as she spoke of Jason's incredible legacy, making it sound like a corporate merger, a $100 million deal he'd just closed. I was rendered invisible. The funeral organizers, clearly briefed by Sabrina, ushered me to a seat in the back rows. I was not family. I was an inconvenient attachment. When the pastor spoke, he offered condolences to his loving wife, Sabrina, and only mentioned me in passing, an afterthought. And, of course, Jason's bereaved mother. I felt like a ghost at my own son's burial. Back at the villa for the reception, the atmosphere was sickeningly celebratory. Sabrina held court by the panoramic window, glass of champagne in hand. "As soon as the lawyer reads the will this afternoon," she announced to her friends, loud enough for me to hear, "I'll officially be CEO of Heartline Labs. That old woman won't have a say in anything." A moment later, a young woman I recognized from Jason's company photos slipped over to me. It was Zoe, one of his lead engineers. She looked nervous. "Mrs. Hart," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "I don't know if this is the time, but just before Jason was investigating some strange withdrawals from the company accounts. Very large sums, all signed off by Sabrina." I stared at her, the blood draining from my face. But before I could ask more, Sabrina called Zoe's name and she scurried away. By afternoon, the guests had thinned, leaving only the inner circle for the main event. We gathered in the living room. Arnold Blake, our family lawyer for 30 years, sat at Jason's large oak desk, his briefcase open. Sabrina, having changed into a sharp black pantsuit, lounged in Jason's favorite dark leather armchair, swirling a glass of red wine. When I walked in, she looked up, a slow, condescending smile spreading across her face. She didn't offer me a seat. I stood by the door. "Let's just get this over with." "Arnold," Sabrina said, waving her glass. "Before you read, I want everyone here to know Jason was very clear about his wishes. Everything goes to me, Nova Pulse, the shares, this house, all of it." She fixed her gaze on me, her eyes glittering with malice. "Some old people," she said to the room, "just need to learn how to live on their social security." Arnold cleared his throat, his face impassive. He didn't look at her. He broke the seal on a thick envelope. "This is the last will and testament of Jason Daniel Hart, executed 6 months ago, and filed with my office." He began to read. The legal language was dense, but the summary was clear. Specific personal effects were divided, and then the payload: all remaining business assets, stocks, and investment accounts, including all holdings related to Nova Pulse Dynamics, are to be transferred into the pre-existing Hart Legacy Trust. He paused. "Sabrina Hart is to be provided a monthly stipend of $5,000, conditional upon her non-interference with the operations of the trust." The silence was absolute. Then Sabrina laughed, a short, sharp bark. "That's absurd. That's his old will. He changed it." She snatched her phone from the table. "He signed a new one, 3 weeks ago." She shoved the phone screen in Arnold's face. "Right here. Everything to me." Arnold didn't flinch. He glanced at the screen. "Mrs. Hart. That is a scanned image of an unsigned document. The signature appears to be a digital copy of his driver's license, and it does not match the wet signature on the document I have on file. This has no legal standing." She snapped. It wasn't quiet. It was a full-blown detonation. "You!" she screamed, pointing at me. "You did this. You brainwashed him. You poisoned him against me, forcing him to hide money in your stupid little trust to punish me." She was on her feet, her face red, the wine spilling. "I'll see you in court. I will sue you for every last cent you stole from me. That is my inheritance." I remained by the door. I didn't say a word. I just watched the performance. She was ranting, threatening, exposing her entire hand to a room full of witnesses. She had just kicked a hornet's nest, but she was aiming at the wrong hive. She thought she was fighting me for Jason's money. I knew, as I clutched my old purse, that she had just declared war on a truth she couldn't even comprehend. If she pushed this to court, the secret that the money was never Jason's inheritance at all would become the weapon that buried her, and I would let her be the one to hand it to me. It took less than 3 days. A long, rambling post appeared on Sabrina's social media. It was a masterpiece of fiction. She painted herself as the grieving widow, left destitute, while I, the greedy mother-in-law, had swooped in to steal my son's entire legacy, leaving her penniless and heartbroken. The post went viral overnight. The comments were an avalanche of hatred, all directed at me. I was a vulture, a monster, a cruel parasite from the old generation, bleeding her own son dry. I sat in my small kitchen, the blinds drawn, watching my name, my life, be publicly incinerated. Then the legal papers arrived, delivered by a grim-faced courier, a civil suit filed in county court. The language was cold, brutal. Sabrina was suing me, accusing me of undue influence, of manipulating a sick man, and coercing Jason to move all his assets into my name, causing her severe financial and emotional damages. The world tilted. I was the one being accused of theft. But the worst was yet to come. One evening, there was a knock. 2 police officers stood on my doorstep. They looked uncomfortable. They were here, they said, to investigate a complaint of elder abuse and financial fraud. I just stared at them. They were investigating me. At 58 years old, I was the one being labeled an abuser. It was then I truly understood Sabrina's strategy. She was flipping the entire narrative, painting me as the predator and her as the victim. My world had inverted, shaking. I closed the door after they left and immediately called Arnold Blake. His voice was grim. "Evelyn, this is no longer a simple estate dispute. She is coming at you with criminal allegations. You are beyond my expertise." He gave me a name. Marla Torres. She's the best. She handles messy family disputes. Marla's office was not what I expected. It was a small, cramped space in a downtown building, piled high with case files. Marla herself was in her early 50s, with the sharpest eyes I'd ever seen and an air of absolute, no-nonsense competence. She listened without interrupting for a full hour. I told her everything. The history with Daniel, the creation of the trust, Jason's sale of Novapulse, the envelope he gave me, Sabrina's performance at the will reading. I pushed the thick folder of documents across her desk. She spent 20 minutes reading, her expression unreadable. Finally, she looked up, her gaze laser-focused. "This is ironclad. Evelyn," she said, her voice a sudden comfort. "The legal structure is crystal clear. This money was never Jason's to be willed away in the manner Sabrina believes. The bulk of this estate is, and always has been, your private property. He was never the full owner, and she was never entitled to it." I felt a rush of relief so profound I nearly wept. "So we just show the court?" Marla held up a hand. "Not yet. This is where it gets dirty. Sabrina's lawsuit isn't about the truth. It's about what she can prove. Her lawyers will argue you used this trust as a shell, a vehicle to hide your theft. They will claim you manipulated Jason. Our job," she said, tapping the Novapulse sales contract, "is to prove that Jason was a competent, intelligent man who actively and willingly took steps to protect you from her." She leaned forward. "We need anything that shows her hand. Any sign she interfered with his finances, his medical decisions, his medication. Anything." She started with the hospital records. We sat in her office late into the night, combing through digital files, and then she found it. "My God," Marla whispered, pointing to the screen. I leaned in. There it was, in black and white. A signature. Sabrina, authorizing an accelerated dosage of morphine, and another form, signed on the same day. She had signed the papers for his early discharge, just one day before he was scheduled for a critical cardiac stress test. A cold, dark realization began to creep up my spine, a dread far deeper than just greed. It wasn't just that she wanted the money. It was that she might have been willing to hasten his death to get it. Marla's recommendation, Darren Cole, was a man who looked more like a tired accountant than an ex-cop, which was precisely why he was so good. He specialized in financial crimes, and I hired him with the last of my accessible liquid funds. His directive was simple: follow Sabrina's money, starting with Heartline Labs. It didn't take him long. Within a week, he found a pattern: small, consistent payments, thousands of dollars every month, funneled from a Heartline corporate card to a shell company a shell company named Briggs Performance Coaching. The name hit me instantly. Tyler Briggs, Sabrina's personal trainer, the one she'd praised for transforming her. Darren's surveillance was discreet and effective. He produced a file of photographs taken outside a boutique hotel across town. Sabrina and Tyler Briggs, not in gym clothes, but holding hands, kissing in the entryway, looking very much like a couple. The hotel records showed they'd been meeting there for at least a year. My son was paying his wife's lover from his own company account. While Darren dug into the money, Marla and he both revisited the hospital. A night nurse, once afraid to speak up, now provided a statement. Darren recorded her words. She said Sabrina often seemed annoyed that Jason was lingering. She'd repeatedly asked a junior doctor about the exact criteria for an early insurance payout in cases of terminal illness. That led Marla to the insurance policy itself. Just 4 months before Jason died, as his health was clearly failing. Sabrina had initiated an update. She doubled the life insurance payout, and she had made herself the sole beneficiary. My name was nowhere on the policy. The pieces were slotting into place, forming a picture so ugly I could barely look at it. But Darren wasn't finished. He pulled security footage from a camera covering a back alley behind the hospital. The timestamp was 2 days before Jason died. It showed Sabrina looking around nervously, meeting a man Darren identified as a contract pharmacist. The video was silent, but the exchange was clear. Sabrina passed him a thick envelope. He, in turn, slipped her a small, white pillbox. While this net was tightening, Sabrina was doubling down on her public assault. She was on a podcast now, a popular true crime one, spinning her tale of woe. She was the victim. I was the villain. She began threatening to expose the entire Hart Legacy Trust as a money laundering scheme if the court didn't step in and protect a widow's rights. The pressure was becoming unbearable. My neighbours crossed the street when they saw me. The bank, responding to the civil suit, placed a temporary hold on a large portion of my personal accounts, pending the court's review. I started having nightmares. Jason, standing just out of reach, asking me why I hadn't told the truth, why I had let her do this. I called Marla, frantic. We have to use it now. We have to tell them the money is mine. It ends this. No! Marla's voice was firm, cutting through my panic. That's secret. Evelyn is our trump card. It proves she has no claim. But if we play it now, she just pivots. She'll say you coerced Jason into that arrangement years ago. Right now, she's obsessed with the will. She thinks she's fighting for his money. Let her. We need more proof she was actively involved in his death. The pillbox is good. The nurse is good. We need something from Jason himself. That night, I knew what I had to do. I retrieved the envelope Jason had given me, the one with the codes. I sat at my computer, my fingers trembling. It felt like a profound betrayal, an invasion of his last private thoughts. I typed in the long, complex password for his secure email server. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked on his drafts folder. There was only one file. The subject line hit me like a physical blow. If you're reading this, it means something happened to me. My hand trembled as I clicked on the draft. It wasn't a note to me. It was addressed to Sabrina. My blood ran cold. It was a letter he had written, but never found the strength to send. Sabrina, it began. I'm writing this because I can't say it. Our marriage is over. I am preparing to leave. I had to read the lines twice. the words blurring through my tears. He was leaving her. He wrote that he was cutting off her access to all non-marital accounts and that he was sorry. "I'm sorry," he wrote, "for enabling your greed for so long. I am sorry I fed a hunger in you that has become a sickness." He explained everything. The money from the Nova Pulse sale. He wrote that he had followed the strict advice of his financial planners and restructured the entire payout. It was a reimbursement and reinvestment back into the Hart Legacy Trust. He had done it. He wrote, "Not to rob you, but to protect the capital from your dangerous and compulsive spending." Then, the paragraph that took my breath away. "Even if I die, Sabrina, especially if I die, you cannot touch this money. It is not, and never was, our money. It is my mother's. It was Hart family money before you ever knew my name. I did this so that my mother, after everything, would never have to kneel to you for a single dollar." I thought that was the worst of it. But the next line was a shock I hadn't anticipated. "I have kept records. I have recorded several of our worst arguments about money and about my mother. They are stored in an encrypted cloud. I have given the password to my lawyer, Marla Torres." Marla. My son had gone to Marla. He had retained my lawyer, the specialist in messy family disputes, months before he told me how bad things truly were. He had been preparing for this. He had been building an ark while I was just sensing the rain. I was in Marla's office an hour later. When I told her about the draft, her face, usually so controlled, softened with something like pity. "He did come to me. Evelyn," she confirmed. She went to a locked filing cabinet and pulled out a sealed envelope. "He gave this to me about 4 months ago. He called it legal contingency materials. My instructions were to open it only if he passed away suddenly, and if Sabrina contested his wishes regarding you." She slit it open. Inside was a USB drive and a single, folded note. His handwriting. "Marla," it read. "If I die suddenly and my wife fights my mother, prioritize the truth and the true meaning of trust." We plugged the drive into her laptop. The cloud folder contained 6 video files. Jason had been secretly recording their fights on his phone. We clicked the first one. It was Sabrina, lounging on the sofa in their villa, laughing. "Of course I use the company card for Tyler," she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "He keeps me looking good. It's an investment. Besides, if you die, I'll be Queen Heartline. I'll be able to afford 1,000 Tylers." I felt sick. Marla clicked the next file. This one was different. It was an active argument. Jason, looking pale and thin, was telling her he had transferred his voting shares in Heartline to me. Sabrina's mask of sophistication shattered. She exploded. "That old leech!" she shrieked, her voice a raw, ugly sound. "She is a parasite. You give her everything. If you don't change that back, Jason, I swear to God I will crush her. I will end her." The pain of watching it was physical. Seeing my son, so frail, absorb that much hatred. But a second feeling was rising alongside the pain, a cold, hard clarity. Jason had known. He had known she was a predator. He had known he was dying. And he had laid this breadcrumb trail, this perfect trap, trusting me and Marla to finish what he started. Marla shut the laptop. The silence in the office was absolute. "Well," she said, her voice hard as steel. "This is no longer a civil dispute about a trust. This is a criminal matter." Her strategy was immediate. We will not be using these videos in the civil suit. Not yet. We are going to turn over a copy of Sabrina's threat, her admission of financial fraud, and the evidence of her relationship with Tyler Briggs directly to the district attorney's office. We will let them investigate her. But the trust documents, I asked. The proof the money is mine. That, Marla said, is our secret weapon. We hold that back. Let her keep screaming that you stole his money. I understood. Sabrina's entire legal case, her entire public smear campaign, was built on the false assumption that the money was Jason's to inherit. If she had known the truth, that the money was mine all along, she never would have accused me of stealing an inheritance. Her own greed, her own ignorance, had made her legally blind, and she was walking right into our trap. The leaks started almost immediately. After Marla submitted her findings, a local newspaper blog ran a story, "Questions Arise in Death of Tech. CEO Jason Hart, DA's office reviewing." Sabrina went into a frenzy. She didn't hide. She counterattacked, posting a tearful video claiming I was pulling strings to launch a baseless investigation to deflect from my own crimes. She was desperate, and she was done playing defense. I was jolted awake one night by the sound of my back window shattering. I grabbed the phone by my bed, my hands shaking. Someone was in the house. I heard them go straight to my bedroom, heard the sound of splintering wood. They were ripping the small, cheap safe out of my closet wall. By the time I heard the sirens, they were gone. A neighbor reported seeing a dark SUV speeding away, a figure in a hoodie in the passenger seat. The police had barely left when Sabrina appeared on the morning news, looking distraught. "I'm terrified," she told the reporter. "This woman is unstable. She's destroying evidence." Then her lawyer presented a shocking new video. It was from a neighbor's security camera, pointed down the street. It showed a woman, my height, my graying hair, my coat, walking briskly into my house just before the break-in. Then, another clip, this one grainy, showed the same figure appearing to climb out of the broken window. "She's staging her own robberies," Sabrina sobbed. "She's trying to frame me." This time, when the police called, it wasn't an inquiry, it was an interrogation. They showed me the video in a small, grey room. "It looks like you, Mrs. Hart." I was staring at a ghost. It was me, but it wasn't. The lighting was wrong. The way the figure moved was jerky. Sabrina had faked it. She had used editing, a deep fake, something, to manufacture evidence. I tried to explain, but I sounded exactly like what they thought I was, a desperate, lying old woman. They arrested me for filing a false police report and obstruction of justice. I felt the cold metal of handcuffs on my 58-year-old wrists. I was processed. I spent 6 hours in a holding cell, the smell of bleach and despair clinging to the air. That was the lowest point. I truly believed, in that cell, that I might die in prison, my son's murderer walking free with my money. Marla arrived like a force of nature. She didn't just post bail, she demanded a forensic review of the video. "You've been set up. Evelyn?" she said, her eyes like ice. And they were sloppy. She brought in a digital forensics expert who tore the video apart in under 2 hours. At the emergency bail hearing, Marla presented his findings. The video was a composite. The metadata showed the clip of me entering the house was from 2 days prior, when I was returning from the grocery store. The clip of the figure exiting the window was a blurred, digitally altered image. The shadows were inconsistent. The timeline was impossible. Then, Marla delivered the killing blow. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and strong. "The anonymous emails sent to the police, the ones containing this falsified video, were all sent from the same IP address. An IP address that just happens to be registered to a video editing studio in Scottsdale. A studio where, according to employment records, Mr. Tyler Briggs, Sabrina's lover, is employed part-time." You could hear a pin drop. Sabrina, who had been sitting in the gallery playing the part of the shocked victim, went pale. The judge threw out the charges against me. I was released, though I had to surrender my passport. A formality. But the judge's suspicion had found its new target. He issued an order for Sabrina to be placed under active surveillance. She was furious, spitting at her lawyer as they left the courtroom, but forced a tearful, sensitive face for the news cameras waiting outside. I walked out of the courthouse, not in relief, but in cold, hard rage. They had put me in cuffs. They had locked me in a cell. The part of me that wanted to hide, that just wanted to grieve my son, was dead. The part of me that wanted justice, no, that wanted to win, was now fully awake. That night, Marla, Darren, and I met in my living room. The broken window was boarded up, a stark reminder of how far Sabrina would go. "She's cornered," Darren said. "She's being watched. She knows the DA is looking at her medical fraud. She's going to do something stupid. She's going to try to move the money she thinks she has," I said. Marla nodded, a grim smile on her face. "She's still obsessed with the inheritance. She still believes Jason had millions stashed away from you, in an account she just couldn't find." A plan began to form, cold and clear. "Then that's how we catch her," I said, leaning forward. "We're going to bait a trap. We'll give her exactly what she's looking for, the secret account she's convinced is hers." Darren was an artist of the digital shadow. He didn't just create an account, he crafted a plausible, high-stakes fiction. A ghost entity named Apex Fiduciary Services, registered offshore, sounding exactly like the kind of place a tech millionaire would hide assets. Then, he sent the email. It was anonymous, routed through a dozen servers, and landed in Sabrina's inbox like a ticking bomb. "The court is filing a motion to discover Jason's private offshore accounts," it read. "The account he hid from his mother. If you want your share, you must move it to this secure contingency wallet within 48 hours. The bait was the details. Darren included 2 specific reference numbers from a bank statement that Jason had kept in his office safe. The safe, I told Darren she had broken into. She would recognize them. She would believe she had an ally inside the banking system. She didn't wait 48 hours. She didn't even wait 1. The surveillance warrant on her phone, granted after the deepfake incident, showed she immediately called Tyler Briggs. She didn't want to talk on the phone. She set a meet an hour later at a storage facility in an industrial park out by the highway. She had rented the unit under a false name 3 months ago, but Darren was already inside. He had accessed the facility's manifest, picked the lock, and planted 2 microcameras and a high-gain microphone. Marla and I sat with him in his dark surveillance van, parked 2 blocks away, the air thick with anticipation as we watched the grainy monitors. She was pacing the concrete floor when Tyler arrived, looking like a cornered animal. "It's real," she said, shoving her phone at him. "This guy, whoever he is, he knows the account, the real one, the one Jason hid from her. The court is going to freeze it. Tyler, we have to move it now." Move it where, how? Tyler asked, his voice shaking. Sabrina stopped pacing. Her eyes were cold. I knew this might happen. I didn't think he'd die so soon. She laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound. He was supposed to last longer, but he was just so weak. I gripped the armrest in the van. Marla stared, transfixed, at the screen. That pharmacist was a genius, Sabrina continued, her voice low and conspiratorial. He gave me exactly what I needed. I just put a little in his smoothie before that big heart test, just enough to make him too tired. And I messed with his pillbox. She looked at Tyler, a strange pride in her eyes. I just switched them around, like the pharmacist said. I thought if he just went peacefully in his sleep, the insurance claim would be clean. Simple. Tyler looked like he was going to be sick. I need you, she said, her voice turning hard. They're watching me. The money can't go to me. It has to go to you. Through your name, your accounts. We move it. We clean it. She grabbed the front of his shirt. You do this for me, and I'll give you 30%, she whispered. 30% of everything, after I win this lawsuit and crush that old hag. This was Tyler's test. Darren had found him first, right after the IP address from the editing studio, faced with conspiracy and fraud charges. Tyler had folded in an instant. The district attorney's office had offered him a deal wear a wire, get her to confess, and they would recommend probation for the financial crimes. He was wearing that wire right now. But as I watched his face on the monitor, I saw him sweating. He was terrified, but he was still mesmerized by her. He licked his lips, trying to follow Darren's script. Sabrina, this is insane. Maybe we should just wait. Talk to the lawyer. Don't maybe me, she snapped. She stopped dead. Her eyes narrowed. What? What's that? What's what? Tyler stammered. Sabrina's hand dove into her expensive handbag. She was paranoid. Ever since the surveillance order, she had been checking. She pulled out a small black device, a compact signal detector. She waved it in front of Tyler's chest. A high-pitched, deafening squeal filled the storage unit and our headsets. You, she hissed, her face transforming into a mask of pure rage. You son of a bitch! You traitor! She lunged at him like a wildcat, clawing at his chest, ripping his shirt open. The tiny wire was exposed, taped to his skin. She tore it off and smashed it against the concrete floor. Darren's high-angle camera, hidden in the rafters, captured every second of the violent, chaotic attack. Tyler shoved her back, genuinely terrified now. They know. Sabrina. They know everything. They know about the money. The audio from the room mic was still live. Her voice was a raw, guttural scream that needed no wire. I did this for us. I killed my husband. For us, I held that damn pillbox. I was the one who signed the papers for more morphine. I burned my entire life down for you. The sound of the heavy metal door sliding open made her freeze. 2 uniformed officers, alerted by Darren the second she attacked Tyler, stepped into the unit, guns drawn. Sabrina's transformation was instantaneous. The mask of the victim snapped back into place. Tears welled. Thank God, she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Tyler. He attacked me. He's been stealing from me. He's the one. He killed Jason. He's been trying to frame me. Tyler, bleeding from a long scratch on his neck, just pointed back, defeated. She did it. She just confessed. She's on tape. She killed him. They arrested them both. In that moment, Sabrina had not only confessed, she had annihilated the credibility of her only co-conspirator. The next day, the district attorney formally charged Sabrina Hart, not just for insurance fraud, not just for embezzlement, for murder in the second degree, based on the willful manipulation of life-saving medication. The civil suit was frozen. I was no longer a defendant fighting for a trust. I was the state's primary witness in the murder of my son. The trial became the biggest show in Phoenix. The court, citing judicial economy, agreed to hear the civil evidence concurrently with the criminal case, which meant Marla could defend me from Sabrina's lawsuit while the DA prosecuted her for murder. The media narrative had flipped entirely. I was no longer the evil mother-in-law. Sabrina, in her orange jumpsuit, was now the Black Widow. Her defense was pathetic, built on sand. Her new, state-appointed lawyer tried to argue she was a victim, a woman distraught by grief, under extreme financial pressure, and mentally manipulated by a controlling mother-in-law. They were trying to paint me as the puppet master, the one who drove her to desperation, hoping to create just enough reasonable doubt to spare her. It didn't work. Marla and the district attorney dismantled her, piece by piece, in clinical, brutal fashion. They called the night nurse, who testified under oath that Sabrina had repeatedly, almost daily, badgered the medical staff to expedite Jason's treatment, complaining that he was taking too long and that the care was a waste of money. Next came the pharmacist, the nervous man from the security footage. He testified that Sabrina had pressured him, offering him $5,000 in cash to provide her with something stronger than Jason's prescribed medication, something to help him rest. Darren Cole took the stand, not as a private investigator, but as a forensic accountant. He presented a spiderweb of charts, showing the jury the undeniable flow of money from Heartline Labs into the shell company, Briggs Performance Coaching, and from there into purchases for luxury cars, designer clothes, and hotel rooms. He proved, beyond any doubt, that Sabrina had a clear, desperate, and immediate financial motive for Jason to die. Then, it was my turn. I walked to the stand, my hands steady. Sabrina was 10 feet away, glaring at me with a hatred so pure it was almost visible. She thought she could intimidate me. She thought I was the same woman who had trembled at her gate. I wasn't. I looked at the jury. I told them about my son, about the bright, kind boy he was. I told them about my husband, Daniel, and the wisdom he had to create the Hart Legacy Trust to protect our family. I calmly explained how Jason, of his own free will, chose to move his assets into that same trust to honor his father's structure and protect his own legacy. But the true climax came during the civil portion, when Marla took the floor. This was the moment. This was the secret. "Your Honor," Marla said, "the plaintiff's entire case, this entire tragedy, is based on a fantasy, the fantasy that there was an inheritance to steal." She put the documents on the projector for the jury to see. The original trust agreement from 1998, the Nova Pulse sales contract, the wire transfer receipts, showing, irrefutably, that the millions of dollars from the sale were wired directly into the account of the Hart Legacy Trust, an entity legally and solely controlled by me. The money had never, not for a single second, belonged to Jason Hart. It was never commingled. It was never his to give. It was never Sabrina's to claim. Sabrina's jaw went slack. Her lawyer shuffled his papers, looking utterly blindsided. Marla wasn't finished. She played the video Jason had recorded, the one of him telling Sabrina he was moving his voting shares to me. The jury saw Sabrina's mask of hatred, heard her shriek, "Old leech," heard her threaten to crush me. Then Marla played the other file from the cloud, the one Jason had recorded for me. My son's face filled the courtroom, tired, sick, but his eyes clear. "If you're watching this," he said to the camera, to me, "it means I'm gone. Don't let her say this money is hers. It's not. It's yours. Mum, it's for you, and for all the mothers who build something, just to watch people like her try to tear it down." Finally, the prosecutor played the audio from the storage unit. The sound was clean, amplified in the quiet courtroom. Sabrina's voice, not a whisper, but a full-throated, rage-filled scream. "I killed my husband for us. I held that damn pillbox. I was the one who signed the papers for more morphine." Sabrina's face crumpled. The act was over. She stared, vacant, as her own voice convicted her, her own words destroying the very last of her lies. Marla's closing argument was short. Sabrina Hart was not fighting for an inheritance, she told the jury. She was trying to steal from a woman who had been nothing but a mother to her. She killed a man to gain a fortune that never existed, a fortune that was never his to give. Her greed targeted a phantom, and that delusion, that terrible, violent greed, is what brought her here. The verdict was swift. Guilty of second-degree murder. Guilty of insurance fraud. Guilty of all financial charges. In the civil matter, the judge dismissed Sabrina's lawsuit with prejudice, affirming my sole ownership of the Hart Legacy Trust. She didn't get a single cent. The courtroom was packed for the sentencing. Sabrina shuffled in, wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung off her frame. She was a shadow of the woman who had smirked at me on her marble steps. The judge read the sentence many years in prison, with no chance of parole for at least 20. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to Heartline Labs and the insurance company, a sum so large it was meaningless. She had nothing left to give. When the judge asked for a victim impact statement, I stood. I felt the courtroom's eyes on me. I looked directly at Sabrina. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just spoke the truth. "The day my son died," I said, my voice steady, "you called him a money machine. You looked at me, a grieving mother, and told me to go live on my tiny pension." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. My son was not a machine. He was the only person who understood that money doesn't belong to people just because they think they deserve it. You killed my son. You murdered him to steal a fortune that was never his, and it was never going to be yours. That's what broke her. Not the sentence. My words. "That's a lie!" she shrieked, lunging forward in the defendant's box, held back by her guards. "It was his. Everyone said it was Jason's money, my lawyers, my friends. Everyone said I would get it all of it." She was weeping now, ugly, painful sobs. She wasn't crying for Jason. She was crying for the money. She had exposed, in her final act, that her entire world was built on a story, a delusion of greed. Outside the courthouse, the cameras swarmed me. A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. "Mrs. Hart, do you regret it? If you'd told her the money was yours from the start, would any of this have happened?" I looked at the camera. "If I had told her the truth," I said, "she would have just found another way to try and destroy my son. It was the illusion of that money, her obsession with a lie that forced her to expose who she really is. The secret didn't cause this. Her character did. In the following months, Marla, Darren, and I rebuilt. We restructured Heartline Labs, putting Zoe, Jason's loyal engineer, in charge of operations. And we used the money, the vast fortune that Sabrina had murdered, to create the Jason Hart Foundation. We established grants to support the families of patients suffering from long-term cardiac and cancer illnesses. At the press conference to launch the foundation, I stood in front of a banner with Jason's smiling face. My son once worried, I told the crowd, that money could corrupt the people he loved. Today, we are ensuring this money does the opposite. We will use it to heal, not to possess. It was a message I knew would find its way, even through prison walls, to Sabrina. That evening, I drove to the cemetery. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the grass. I placed my hand on the cool marble of Jason's headstone. I never told her, I whispered, the secret just between us. I never told the world. I let them all believe she was fighting for your money. That misunderstanding, that one secret, it saved me. It's what dragged her into the light. I realized it wasn't just the legal papers that had saved me. It was his care. Every contract, every transfer he'd made back to the trust, every password he'd given me, it was an act of protection. He had known, and he had saved me, even in death. I left the cemetery and drove, not to my empty house, but to the small new office of the foundation. The lights were on. Inside, the first stack of applications for assistance was waiting on my desk. I sat down and picked up the first file. A family in Tucson, a mother with a heart condition, drowning in medical bills. I read their story, and for the first time since that terrible phone call, I smiled. A real, small smile. The secret, the money that had been a curse, had saved my life, and now it was going to save theirs. This, I knew, was the only revenge that mattered. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Please, leave a comment below, let me know where you are, and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary. Give this video a like, and if you can, please hit that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.